Welcome to the pre-post film review. I'm Matt Stevenson.
And I'm Jon Asquith. So the idea behind the pre-post film review is that we have two segments. The first is a trailer analysis and impressions, and we record that when the trailer is released, and that's usually a few months before or even a year before the film. And then we come back into the studio however many months later and once we've seen the film and record our thoughts and reviews and sort of compare to what our expectations were from the trailer.
So this episode we're going to be talking about Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, the new film in the Apes series. So the first part of the podcast will be Jon and I chatting about the trailer when that was released. That'll be spoiler free, so feel free to listen to that even if you haven't seen the film. Then we'll jump forward to just after we've seen the film itself, and Jon and I will be back in the studio chatting about how we think the film lived up to our expectations. And that'll be chock full of spoilers, so Don't listen to that until you've seen the film.
Nope.
We've been through hell together. We spent 4 years. 4 years fighting that virus and then another 4 fighting each other. It was chaos. But you all know what we're up against.
Okay, Matt, we're in here today to talk about Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
We are.
Just watched the trailer. What are your thoughts?
I'm super excited for this, actually. This is probably my most anticipated sort of big budget blockbuster of the season. And the trailer's only kind of reaffirmed that. I think the trailer looks friggin' amazing. This is basically just going to be me gushing over it. I think it looks great. I think visually it looks incredible. The sort of dilapidated cities and the weird sort of fortress that they have in the forest looks great. CGI looks friggin' incredible. You got Andy Serkis again as the lead, and he's just a master at motion capture, so that'll no doubt be incredible. I think the thing that's most exciting about this is that it seems like it's a rare blockbuster that is super thematically rich. Like, it's interesting in terms of the subject matter that it deals with. It's not about explosions and it's not about robots punching aliens. You know, it's about society, and it has a lot of things to say, it feels like. Yeah,
absolutely. Continuing in the tradition of most of the Planet of the Apes films, I guess. And following on from the first one, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which, was the same thing, obviously, where you get some great action, but there's actually some substance there as well.
I think that's what was great about the first one. What was so surprising about that was that, you know, no one thought that, or at least I didn't think, a remake of the cheesy old Planet of the Apes film would be any good, and then or prequel, I should say. But it turned out to be one of the most interesting and sort of thought-provoking films of that year. And this looks like it's continuing on that tradition, I guess.
Yep, totally.
How did you feel about the trailer, Jon?
Look, I agree. I really like the Planet of the Apes, the original film. Like, it's one of my favourite old sort of sci-fi films, It's, you know, if you can get past some of the makeup effects.
Dodgy makeup,
Yeah, I mean, you know, for the time it was quite good, and I think it won an Oscar for best makeup and stuff. I think, or it was at least nominated. So I really love that, and you know, that set the precedent for these sort of action films that have something to say. I still get chills watching the big reveal at the end of that film, and I didn't have high hopes for Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
I don't think anyone did.
They're just cashing in on the franchise. It won't be good. We loved it. I thought it was amazing. And so, I'm really excited for this one as well. You've kind of said pretty much everything that I'm getting all emotional talking about it. You've kind of said everything, that I was thinking as well. It looks amazing visually. It seems to hint at some great story developments. I really like these glimpses we're getting at Caesar where he has evolved a bit more, but he's still kind of speaking in broken English.
Yeah, I love that as well.
He's not suddenly like, all right, troops, or,
yeah, definitely.
It hasn't jumped forward that much, really.
Yep.
I don't actually know the official timeline, but it's like a few years or something ahead from the first one. In terms of like behind the scenes stuff, Matt Reeves directing.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. He hasn't done a lot of feature work, but what he has done is pretty solid. Yeah. I think, like Cloverfield, we both
I love Cloverfield.
big fans
I think
of.
It's very underrated film.
Yeah, yep, I love that. Let Me In, which was a remake that didn't need to exist, but if you're gonna do it, like, he did a good job.
Yeah,
I
totally agree. I think it's a very good remake that never should have happened in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that I would have a little bit of a problem with was the trailer, again, revealing a little bit too much in terms of plot. I don't think it's too bad, but you kind of get a pretty sort of broad idea of what the sort of arc of the film will be from the trailer. Which I guess is inevitable in a way, but hopefully there's some surprises hidden in there somewhere.
Yeah, and I'm hoping too that the climax is more emotional than what the trailer's suggesting, which is two sort of armies running at each other. I'm really over that imagery now of, ever since Lord of the Rings, every Hollywood film's been trying to sort of mirror that. Very optimistic.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't feel like it's going to let me down, but who knows? Yeah,
I feel the same way. I'm not cautiously optimistic about this. I think it is definitely going to live up to our high hopes.
Yes.
I think it would be very disappointing if it doesn't.
Yep. Looking forward to it.
Definitely.
Caesar looking forward.
I need to speak to Caesar! And I want you to know, it's not just about power, it's about giving us the hope to rebuild and reclaim the world we lost.
Okay, here we are, sitting in the studio.
Yep.
My friend Matthew.
That's right.
And we saw Dawn of the Planet of the Apes last night.
We did.
Before recording this. We did see it together, and we haven't spoken about the movie since.
No.
So I'm very eager to hear. I've got an idea what you think, but tell me what you thought overall of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Well, I had pretty high expectations going into this one. I think we talked about that in our trailer review. I think I said this was my most anticipated sort of big budget blockbuster of the summer. Mm-hmm. So hopes were high going in, and I think overall it met my expectations. I was really pleased with this film. I think it delivered exactly what I wanted it to deliver in terms of big themes and more interesting blockbuster filmmaking. Visually, I thought it looked amazing. I did have some minor problems with it. It wasn't perfect, but I think we can probably go into that a little bit later. But overall, I really liked it. I was impressed. It felt fresh and unique and really built on the world that was created by the first one, I think. So overall, a big thumbs up. What about you, John?
Yeah, I loved it as well. I was blown away for most of it by how good it was. And I had high hopes as well, but it pretty much exceeded, what I was hoping out of the film.
Yeah, wow.
I had a few issues, which, as you said, we'll get to later, towards the end of the movie.
Yep.
But overall, I thought, this is exactly what I want out of a summer blockbuster Hollywood film.
I totally agree.
It delivers on the spectacle, on the visuals, and there's also emotional weight and, some nice thematic stuff going on. And I just, like, from start to finish, I was totally in the movie, and I loved it.
So I guess probably the most obvious thing to talk about off the bat are the visuals or the CGI. holy shit, right?
Yeah.
Like, can we get any better than this? Like, this
I don't know. You know, everyone says that at
true.
the period
That's
they're
true.
in, but it's so hard to imagine this looking much better.
Just wow, yeah.
Like, it is incredible. And, like, so much of the movie, what you're looking at is fake.
Yeah.
Not there at all, you know?
But
like,
I had to keep telling myself that during the film a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Because you'd forget, or that it would just be, I would be in constant amazement at how incredible it all looked.
Yeah. So, you know, just in terms of photoreal, but also the motion capture technology has gone to this new level of subtlety and stuff. And then, you know, they get animators to do little tweaks on top. And they've just perfected that process now, I think.
Yeah.
Like, for characters that speak in broken English and a lot of what they're thinking is sort of internal, and you're just looking at their eyes most of the time to see like how they're feeling.
That's such a good point.
So impressive, you know. One of the big differences with motion capture this time around, like all the apes were on set all the time. I think there was not much done later in like a mocap studio.
I love that.
And you can tell, like, that there is a physical thing there. And so they're on the set, and I guess that's why it looks great, because they're interacting with the mud and
definitely,
or the foliage, and I almost said leafage then.
But even not to harp on about the CGI, but just things like the little details, like the fur, the way it all looks when it gets wet. And there's a scene early on where it's like lightly raining, and there's just like tiny little hairs that you can see the drops hitting them. It's incredible.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's the sort of movie where it's all in service of the story and the characters, and it's showing off, but it's also not. You know what I mean? Like, it's so technically proficient, but it's backed up by this great, for the most part, great storyline that
I agree.
I love talking about it in this case. And then, you know, on the other hand, you have something like a Transformers film where everyone's like, yeah, the robots look cool though, and it's like, I don't care. Yes, they do technically, but well, actually, you know, there's a whole other thing within there.
I know.
But from a computer standpoint, yes, they look good, but I don't care.
There's nothing else there. It's just vacuous.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That very first shot when it opened with him in the war paint, really close up on his eyes, that I knew that I was gonna love the film.
Yeah, me too.
Because for one, that was such a key shot of the trailer, and I was 100% sure that was the end of the film.
Yeah, like and going off to battle.
Yeah, that was gonna be how it all ended. He'd be in his war paint, they'd be charging in at the humans, and having that open the film, it just completely threw me off balance. I didn't know what was coming from then on, which was a great sort of mindset to be in from the beginning. I really liked that. So what did you think of the story in terms of your expectations based on what we saw on the trailer?
I liked it overall.
Yep.
I think, you know, we were talking about in the trailer that it potentially kind of gave away a bit too much, and you could see the arc of the film.
Yep.
And that's probably true. But on the other hand, the story is kind of simple, you know, in many ways, in terms of what happens, you know, in this time span that we're looking at. So there were nice surprises, like Caesar's like family dynamic and stuff.
Yeah.
I just kind of wasn't really thinking that would be something.
Yeah, that's true.
I really enjoyed all that. The interactions with the humans I really enjoyed. I actually could have done with even a bit more of that before.
You mean in terms of the interactions with the three leads? Or with the whole...
Yeah, that's sort of bonding and just seeing these two cultures interact was really interesting. And that goes to, I think, in general, I like the first half of the film better than the second half.
Right.
But, and, you know, then there is the war. But I guess a refreshing thing about it was that the war wasn't just humans versus apes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't Caesar leading the army and leading the uprise. It was like a bit of, sabotage from within on both sides. And there were parallels in both societies, even characters that were quite similar. And I really liked that. And I think they needed something like that. Otherwise, it could have potentially been less interesting. Just a war film. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's totally true. I have kind of conflicting feelings about the story to an extent, because on a lot of levels it did surprise me, which I loved. I did 100% think I knew exactly how this story was going to play out. And even though I thought it was going to be great and, thematically powerful and interesting, I thought I knew the big beats that it was going to hit. And it hit some of them, but it kind of wasn't exactly how I thought it was going to be. Like, I thought Gary Oldman was going to be the big human villain that would sort of be forcing this attack on the apes, which kind of didn't happen. I mean, it did to an extent, but he was only in it for, 10 minutes of screen time, really?
He wasn't in it much at all, was
he? And like you said, it was much more focused on the apes and the infighting within the ape community, which I loved. I thought that was so much more interesting than just watching humans and apes get angry at one another than go to war.
Yeah, exactly.
But sort of having said that, there was also some stuff that was a little bit too conventional for my taste as well. For example, the guy, I can't think of his name, the evil guy that was in the little main group of heroes, the one that just hated the apes for absolutely no reason. There was no backstory given to him whatsoever, and it was just one of those blind hatred. He was there to be the catalyst for, bad stuff to happen and their plans to all fall apart. And he felt like underdeveloped and cliched, and he's not a three-dimensional character at all. I think the perfect counterpoint to that is old mate that I can't think of his name, the guy that sort of leads the uprising within the apes. What's the bad ape?
Koba?
Koba, yeah. Koba is the perfect flip side to that, who is so well developed.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're the same guy on both sides, but
one
the
done
ape
well,
is so
one
much
done,
more developed. Yeah.
Yes, and there's that great scene where he's sort of arguing with Caesar about whether they should trust them or not, and what does he say? He keeps repeating the three words, human work, and he's pointing to the scars, and he gets more and more aggressive, pointing to all the different scars, because he was this sort of lab rat, this animal that they did tests on for his entire life, which makes sense. You totally sympathise with him and understand 100% why he would hate the humans and not trust any of them.
Why he's so quick to anger and everything. I think some of that potentially gets slightly undone towards the end of the film, where he becomes sort of just a villain ape.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I suppose they needed that. But that's a good point, and the equivalent scene is with the human is around the campfire. I guess this is a good time to talk about that sort of Planet of the Apes, the history of them having, being on the nose metaphors for stuff that's happening in society. And that campfire scene, it reminded me a lot of political stuff that's going on in Australia at the moment with, I don't know, like asylum seekers or something. And people are like, oh, they're coming and they're taking our money and they're taking our jobs. And it's like, that's not true. And, totally. I would have liked to have seen a bit more of that from the human side.
Yeah, that's very true, because there is that whole point of making gross generalizations about a culture or a people in general, which I'm definitely glad it has that sort of stuff in it. That's what makes it interesting to watch. But I just wish that was handled a little bit better with that character, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I still hated him though.
Yeah, he was a prick.
Yeah. I was thinking when watching it how great of a visual storyteller Matt Reeves is in this movie. Because you've got not a lot of dialogue between the apes. There's a bit more as it goes on, but basically none. A few grunts and growls.
Yeah, sign language.
I loved all those scenes where it was just the apes communicating I think in their culture and stuff.
That's also a testament to Andy Serkis and the actors and the animators. It's an incredible job that they've managed to pull that off.
Yeah.
And the other thing, speaking to that, is when it started and the first 20 minutes that you basically are just with the apes, there's not much human stuff at all at that point. And it's all subtitled. It's like watching a foreign film.
Yeah.
How amazingly refreshing is that to have a huge Hollywood blockbuster that's, 50% subtitled.
Yeah. So
it's
awesome.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah. The opening was amazing. And speaking of that too, it was interesting. for those who have seen the Godzilla trailer and the Godzilla film, that it wasn't the same piece of music, but it was very heavily inspired.
Actually, I thought the same thing. Yeah,
you know, that,
I've forgotten about that.
I'm forgetting what the actual piece is called, but that choral, eerie
2001.
voice piece from 2001 that's also in Godzilla. And, you know, we were not big fans of Godzilla, and it's used so much more effectively
it's great.
and in place here.
Yep.
You know, it's this like... What I loved about that was, you know, the apes, and throughout the whole movie, they're so strong and have a physical, scary presence a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And this opening wasn't like, oh, look, they're one with nature. Oh, isn't it
like
pleasant?
Tarzan, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's this like weird kind of scary music, and like, look at these intelligent things, like coordinating this attack together.
Exactly.
And,
it's got this like primal viciousness about them.
Yeah, exactly.
As well as the intelligence.
Yeah. It was such a great opening sequence.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I'd forgotten about that, actually. But speaking of the music itself, that's another thing I really loved. Later on in some of the action scenes, it almost felt like the score was like harkening back to like old school, like 60s, 70s sci-fi. Absolutely. With the weird like the piano notes and the weird like flutes or something. I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was, but there's like this undercurrent of like nostalgic old school sci-fi score to it, which was awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have that in my notes as well. Like that, Michael Giacchino did the score, and he's awesome. Mm-hmm. And I think there were like heavy nods to the original score from, you know, the original Planet of the Apes, which has that sort of weird percussion and little tings and tangs all over the place.
Actually, okay. Speaking of like weird, creepy vibes, I thought one of my favorite little scenes was the one where Koba is sort of sneaks into the human base and finds the armory, which he's there to sort of like prove to the other apes that the humans are bad. And then he does this sort of play acting to pretending like he's a dumb ape so that the humans won't shoot him and they'll let him go. And then he comes back a few scenes later and plays dumb again and manages to get like, up close with these two soldiers that are there testing some machine guns. And it's an extended scene of him sort of joking around and wanting to some whiskey off them, and it's like perfectly played like a circus chimp or something, and it's hilarious. Like,
and the music even at that point is like do 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 do, like, you know, totally putting you in this position where I'm gonna laugh and relax and
I mean, it's not a film that has many laughs in it at all, and that's one of the few scenes that is pretty humorous.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, he just picks up one of the machine guns, and even then he's twirling it around. That's funny, and the soldiers are kind of laughing.
Yeah.
And then he just shoots one of them with this like
point blank. Really close.
Splatters him everywhere, and then his demeanor just changes, and he holds up the gun and just points it at the other guy. And instantly changes from this dumb, clownish ape to this super intelligent, menacing creature that knows how to use a gun. And it was just this incredible, like, flipping a switch between rare funny comedic moment in the film to horrific violence and a really sort of unsettling, disturbing end to the scene. I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, me too. That was one of the highlights. I mean, they're like sprinkled throughout these great moments, and that was like, you could feel the like tension in the cinema. Just like go whoop, all of a sudden. It was amazing, and it was darker, and I mean, the perspective was from behind the soldiers, so you didn't see front on what was the gore or anything, but you almost felt it, you know.
Yeah, it's almost more powerful like that, I think.
Yeah,
it was violence and the implied gore.
Yeah, it implied that stuff, and it got dark, a lot darker than I was sort of expecting in general at that point. You know, it happens so suddenly that, and it's quite shocking that you spend most of the rest of the movie thinking anything could happen.
It puts you on edge for the rest of the film. Yeah,
anything's
possible
who could
now.
die here? You know, and then when Caesar gets shot, not too soon after. I would have believed. I was ready to believe that he was going to die. And this is where running this podcast is a problem sometimes, because there was a shot from the trailer.
Really?
Which I remember thinking like, oh, that looks like it's going to be an emotional scene. And it was the shot where they're back at James Franco's house and he's looking at the footage on the
See, I could remember
camera.
that shot, but I couldn't remember who was watching the footage.
Okay. Yeah. And so I was waiting for that and I was thinking, well, that's either deleted scene now or he's not dead.
Yeah.
And so I was disappointed that I knew, because even when they first find him, you know, it's a bit of a trick, but
dead,
he's just like staring up at the...
Though, having said that, I was disappointed when he came back. Like I was so impressed that they would even consider doing that.
Mm.
And, you know, I guess it was kind of dumb of me to think that they would when he's the main character of the film, and that was only, 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah, I guess...
that he gets shot.
Andy Serkis is so pivotal to the role. It'd be like killing Brad Pitt in a movie or something.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not something that's done in a big budget film.
Yeah, which is a shame, because it was it did sort of build up enough, I don't know, suspense or tension that I thought something like that could happen leading up to that point. So it was a little bit disappointing that they didn't have the conviction to go through with it. But I think it's worth it in the end. Like the story is trying to tell needs him to survive.
Yeah, that's right. But you know, he comes back to life and well, not back to life. He doesn't die, but whatever. He rises from the dead. Yeah. They take him. They're driving through the city, and you know, you go back to James Franco's apartment, and I got really emotional around that part of the film. Yeah, I've only seen the first film maybe 2 times.
Yeah, I think I've only seen it once.
2.5-ish, you know. But something really connected with me there. And when he was looking at the footage and he was sort of, you know, looking at his old swing and the photos and stuff, like I almost teared up, actually. Yeah, I felt really connected to the character. And that, again, after that, I was thinking, like, how amazing it is to have this reaction to a completely CG creation, you know?
It's interesting you should say that, because that was... I mean, before I was talking about how there's not many funny moments in the film. It's not a light film, but it's not this big doom and gloom dark film either. I think it's full of these beautiful little moments of joy and hope, I guess.
Yeah.
Like there's the scene with the baby monkey that's kind of climbing all over them, and I mean it's not funny, but it's such a beautiful scene.
Yeah.
And there's so many moments of tenderness, particularly in the ape or chimpanzee, I guess technically they are, in their community, with the Caesar's wife, I guess.
Yeah.
It feels weird.
I didn't see a ring on her finger,
but there was so many like touching moments that I didn't sort of expect, and I think is kind of rare for a big blockbuster like this. Even though I kind of do harp on about how films can be too dark and serious, I don't think this suffered from that.
Yeah, well, this walked that line perfectly, I think. And I guess we've talked through semi chronologically here.
Yep.
Caesar gets shot, goes off to heal. Koba leads the sort of rebellion, or the apes
actually
into the city.
That's the other thing that I really liked. Like that big battle, I presumed was the finale of the film, and it's not. It's probably like the end of the second act. Yeah. Which was a nice surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was staged really well. It wasn't... I think I said in the trailer analysis, like, I don't want 2 armies running at each other. And there was...
That didn't really happen.
It doesn't really happen. I mean, you have one running towards the, you know.
Yeah, running at a building.
Yeah. But it wasn't staged in that typical battle sort of way, I think. Like, I really enjoyed the way that it was framed, and that it took its time too, with the humans kind of setting up and hearing everything coming. And in general, that's another thing I love about the movies, that it took its time with things.
Yeah, I think that really pays off in that battle scene, because I remember thinking when I was watching it that it's a rare example of me actually caring about everyone that I see on screen getting shot. And maybe that's a bit of a, you know, the symptom of humans not liking to watch animals be injured. Maybe that has something to do with it, but I think it also has to do with the fact that we've spent so long with that ape society, And we've got to know all those characters so well. And even the little peripheral characters, you still sort of... You've seen so much of them that when you see them charging into battle and potentially getting shot, and a lot of them do get shot and blown up.
Yeah.
Like, it's not easy to watch.
No, it's not. And it's, I guess because they are animals, you know, in terms of getting a PG or M rating, they can push it a bit further because they're not human. And so, you know, it doesn't matter as much. That happens a lot with creatures in these sorts of movies.
Or robots,
yeah. But, you know, it didn't go for too long. It was the perfect amount of time. The action that took place in it was incredibly well done. You know, there's one shot where Koba, you know, there's a tank coming down, and the camera's sort of mounted on the back of the tank, and Koba, like, gets in there and pulls the humans out, and then sort of stays in it and is shooting, and it's just one take, you know, and it goes for, I don't know, 20 seconds.
I think the tank's the top of the tank, the turret of the tank is rotating
turning
the whole time. So you're spinning 360 as the tank drives forward.
Yeah.
As the action is happening on the tank and around the tank.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
It's just a feat of filmmaking. Yeah. So they do that, and then they sort of win against the humans, and then Koba sort of turns from just wanting to get revenge to, like, I'm a bad ape now, and kills Caesar's son's friend. I can't remember his name. Is that a J in it? I don't know.
I thought it started with A.
Oh, maybe
I
it's
could be wrong. I don't know.
AJ.
This is a great podcast. Yeah. Matt and Jon guess the names of apes.
So what did you think once that, because that's a turning point sort of in the story then. For me, that was where I still really enjoyed the rest of the film, but it did go down a couple of notches.
I think, I agree. I guess at that point, you're right. Koba stops being this kind of like sympathetic, interesting anti-hero or, you know, villain, I guess, and turns into like a cartoony.
He just wants the power then.
Just super villain. But I think that sort of also happens on every aspect of the story at that stage as well. Like you got Gary Oldman's character, sort of doesn't seem to earn that arc that he goes through, and then all of a sudden he's just willing to fucking blow himself up to kill everyone and all the apes to apparently save humanity. Yeah.
I did enjoy the moment, the brief moment we had with him when he got power back and he was looking through his iPad or something.
Yeah, and he broke it. Yeah, that's true. I did like that as well.
It's little scenes like that really separate this from the standard Hollywood film.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I was impressed about, because I thought he was going to be the villain. That's another good example of you never feel like Gary Oldman's a villain.
Not at all, no.
You always understand his motivations. I mean, I think it's a little bit over the top at the end with his C4 craziness.
Yeah, when they come up through the sewer and he's like, I've planted C4 everywhere. I was like, oh, don't, please. I don't want, it to turn into this sort of thing.
But even then, like, fucking, 7 things of C4 get blown up right in front of Malcolm or whatever his name is, and just because he happens to duck out of the way, he magically survives, which is a little bit,
Yeah, there's a bit of a stretch, but, the film had been so good up to then that I was willing to go with it.
Yeah.
And, like, the explosion wasn't the be-all and end-all of the finale either. It affected things, but it also wasn't like countdown to the explosion and that's the end of the film.
How did you feel about the final showdown between Koba and Caesar and the old girder fight up in the top?
Yeah, this was the biggest problem I had with the film. It doesn't ruin it by any means, but I was not as interested at that point because it felt like a movie finale. It didn't feel like that would happen in this world. The world of the film, sorry. I think it turned into like the script wants them to have a fight now, or the producers want them to have a fight because I know they had to have a standoff and they had to have a fight and prove who's the dominant ape and everything, but the fact that they were like so far up, and they could easily fall, and at that point actually it did look a bit CG-ish.
Yeah, I think because at that point I think every single thing in shot was CG. At that point,
exactly.
Like the sunrise, the giant building, half constructed building, the apes, everything.
Yeah, and you never want to get this comparison, but I was reminded of episode 3 at one point. Caesar
swinging?
and Cobra are swinging,
I'm glad I didn't think of that at
and
the
they're like punching as each swing goes by, and it reminded me of that stupid lightsaber fight in Episode 3 with Anakin and.
Having said that, and this is going to make me sound really wanky and overthinking the scene, but I really did like the way that they sort of maintained character throughout that whole fight, and that I remember thinking that I liked like Cobra's viciousness, and he was always the one attacking, whereas Caesar was always like defending himself, and he had the shield up, and it was kind of like representative of their roles within.
I think you're right.
Like he was always the defender of and Cobra was always the aggressive, violent one.
And Caesar, you see him thinking and noticing weaknesses in Cobra and striking at the right moment.
Yeah,
I agree with all that, and I think at that point it was still okay, but it was after that where they were swinging. Started swinging. And they tumbled a bit too much and things were exploding. Yeah, that just a little. If they just pulled that back just a tiny bit, I would have been a little more satisfied. What did you think of the cliffhanger? Did that bother you at all, or
the letting Cobra go, where he's like, "Apes do not kill apes."
Yeah. I thought it was an okay moment. And it was a fitting end for that.
Yeah, I guess so. I like that it tied back to that lore that we kind of saw, plastered up around their community, and that sort of Caesar held as the big truth. And I do really like that his character was pushed to the point where he had to break that one rule that he would never kill another ape. Yeah. I think it could have perhaps been played a little bit better. Like, I didn't feel the how weighty that decision was, because Cobra, I think, at that point was such a villain. Yeah, exactly. And you just had to kill him. Yeah. If he was a more sympathetic character and it was a little bit more even-sided at that moment, and he chose to do that, I think that would have been a more powerful moment. But it had the makings of it there. I think it was okay. Yeah. And there was things like that I really did enjoy. I liked that it was kind of about this inevitability of violence. Like, no matter what both sides tried to do to stop it, like it was always going to happen. It's within them. Actually, one thing we haven't talked about is Blue Eyes, of the son.
Oh yeah.
What did you think of his arc in the story?
I think I actually really liked it.
Yeah,
I think,
me too.
It was a really nice way of showing that he was viewing both sides of how the apes were sort of thinking, and it was just interesting to see him learning these things, and that he will be the next generation and bring the ape culture up even more, and it was great acting from whoever played him as well.
Yeah, I think that was the strongest part of the third act, I think, because that's when it really became about him and his internal struggle. And there's that scene where he's brought back to his father, and Caesar's there on the couch, recovering from his bullet wound, and just the shame on Blue Eyes' face when he has to sort of admit that he's been following Cobra, and like he'd only done it out of fear, and it was just an amazing scene.
A really powerful scene, and again, I got a bit misty-eyed.
Yeah, I did then as well. This film could have been such a colossal fuck up. You've basically got 2 hours of monkeys crying and riding on horses. Like, this could have been a laughing stock.
It could have been absolutely ridiculous.
It's kind of amazing that it works so well.
Yeah. I think that's part of why I love it so much, is because it does work so well. They didn't screw it up, and I'm just so happy that they didn't screw it up. And not only did they not screw it up, they gave us a really good film.
Yeah, it's stuff like this that gives me a little bit more hope in the big budget sort of system.
Yeah,
that
same.
Something like this gets through and is being successful and getting a lot of critical acclaim. Yeah. Yeah.
The light is still shining.
Thanks for listening to the pre-post film review.
We'd love to hear what you guys thought about Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
We would.
So please email us with your thoughts at prepostfilmreview@gmail.com. You can also join in the conversation on Facebook. So head to prepostfilmreview.com, which will take you to Facebook. And please give us a like there, or search us, or however you want to get to Facebook. It's fine. Subscribe to us on iTunes if that's how you get your podcasts. That would be great. or whatever podcasting you go through. We would love some subscriptions through there. We're also on Letterboxd, aren't we, Matt?
We certainly are.
So you can just search our names there, which you'll find us handily saying at the start of the episode. So thanks very much for listening.
And join us next episode. We're going to be chatting about the new film Snowpiercer, which is pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm. It was interesting that they didn't have any genitalia. I know this is a legitimate thing.
You're just standing there going, "Give me more monkey penis, Matt Reeves."
A little bit. It didn't bother me, but a couple of scenes where Caesar would stand up and he's middle of frame, and it's like, where's his junk?